The family of 53-year-old Melissa Casaias has been left baffled and heartbroken. Her last known movements on June 26, 2024, were so out of character and so inexplicable that they've raised more questions than answers. Melissa's husband, Mark, was the last confirmed person to see her before she vanished. That morning, the two drove together to their workplace, the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico. They both worked there. When Melissa dropped Mark off, he reminded her that he'd need the car back around 11 a.m. Melissa told him she had an assignment to complete in another area of the lab and would return with the car in time. She seemed completely fine. Nothing appeared wrong, but there was one problem. Melissa had forgotten her employee badge at home. Without it, she couldn't access her assignment site. So instead, she drove back home to work remotely. Her daughter, who was home at the time, heard her arrive at around 7:45 a.m., but this created a strange detail that no one has been able to explain. If Melissa didn't have her badge, how did she manage to drive into the lab to drop Mark off earlier? Later that day, around 12:30 p.m., Melissa showed up at her daughter's workplace, a shop in Taos, and brought her a Subway sandwich. They spoke briefly. Her daughter handed her a check and asked her to drop it at the bank. At 12:57 p.m., Melissa left. Her daughter recalls that she was acting completely normal. Back at the lab, Mark started to get concerned when Melissa didn't return with the car at 11 like she had promised. At first, he assumed she was simply caught up with work. But then, Melissa's boss called him to say she had never shown up at all. Mark tried calling her. No answer. He reached out to their daughter, asking her to text Melissa instead. The daughter sent her a message and even a screenshot of Mark's request. The message was marked as read, but no reply ever came. Then, things got stranger. A family friend reported seeing Melissa walking along NM 518, heading east toward Pot Creek. This was later confirmed by CCTV footage. But from the grainy images, it was impossible to tell if she was in distress. Mark and his daughter tried again to reach her, but now their messages didn't go through at all. It appeared her phone had been turned off. When her daughter arrived home, the doors were locked. The car was parked neatly in the garage. Inside, Melissa's keys and work phone were on the kitchen table. In her office sat her purse, wallet, and, oddly, her personal cell phone. But when her daughter tried to unlock it, she found it had been wiped, completely reset to factory settings. The check Melissa was supposed to take to the bank, still there. At 5 p.m., Mark returned home and officially reported her missing.
June 26 is the last day Melissa Casaias was seen or heard from. Jasmine and Trudy, Casaias' niece and sister, told us what they remember. In the morning, Casaias dropped off her husband at Los Alamos National Labs, where they both work. New Mexico State Police say she then went back home. Her daughter told investigators her mom said she may stay home and run errands.
At some point, she took a break and picked up Subway and dropped it off for her daughter, my cousin Sierra, at the coffee shop where she works in the Taos Plaza area.
This video is one of the last times Casaias is seen. NMSP tells us the last place someone saw her was walking along State Road 518 in Thelma.
Extensive searches followed, but no sign of Melissa was ever found. In the weeks after her disappearance, her family discovered paperwork suggesting she had been under significant stress, something they hadn't fully realized at the time. Today, her case remains unsolved. The New Mexico State Police are asking anyone with information to contact their dispatch line at 505-425-6771. Until then, the mystery of what happened to Melissa Casaias lingers, leaving her loved ones with nothing but questions and the haunting silence of her absence. Began with a single, chilling message, a text from 59-year-old Debbie Collier to her daughter. "They're not going to let me go. Love you." Within 24 hours, Debbie would be found dead, and the mystery of what happened to her would stun an entire community.
Counties, a woman from Athens is found dead in Habersham County. Police are treating her death as a homicide as police reveal what her daughter says was her mom's final disturbing message to her.
Yeah, that's right. And 11 Alive John Sherrick is tracking down those details right now.
September 2022. Debbie was the front office manager at Carriage House Realty in Georgia. Married to Steve Collier, a loyal Georgia Bulldogs fan. Her car was in the shop for repairs, so she rented a Chrysler Pacifica. On September 10th, she left her home with nothing but her driver's license and a debit card. And then, she vanished. The next day, a police sergeant spotted the rental car. It was sitting in a pull-off along Georgia Highway 15 near Clarksville, an area that led to an old logging road. The vehicle was unlocked. No sign of Debbie. No obvious clues. Another officer recalled seeing it there the night before, around 5 p.m., but didn't think anything of it. Drivers often stopped in that area. After Debbie was reported missing, her daughter Amanda revealed something alarming. She'd spoken to her mom the day before, and everything seemed normal. But then, Amanda got a notification. Debbie had transferred her $2,400 through Venmo, using her husband's account. Minutes later came the message, "They're not going to let me go. Love you." The following day, Debbie's body was found, 60 miles from her home, in a wooded area near Tallulah Falls. Near her lay a red tote bag, a blue tarp, partially burned. Debbie was unclothed, still clutching a small tree with her right hand. The autopsy revealed multiple injuries. She had inhaled superheated gases, a sign of fire being present while she was still alive. High levels of hydrocodone were found in her system. Investigators believe her killer tried to destroy evidence by setting her body on fire, but failed. There was another unsettling detail. On the very day she disappeared, Debbie was caught on security cameras at a Family Dollar store in Habersham County. She was buying a blue tarp, a red tote bag, a lighter, a rain poncho, and paper towels. That same day, her daughter Amanda also visited that store. Amanda later viewed the footage of her mother's visit, but, strangely, has never reached out to the store's manager since. Search warrants have been issued. Rumors have spread. Some believe Debbie may have been the victim of a serial killer, but so far, no evidence supports that theory. The truth remains locked in those last haunting hours of her life. If you have any information about what happened to Debbie Collier, contact the Habersham County Sheriff's Office, because somewhere out there, someone knows exactly why Debbie sent that final terrifying message.
More than a week after authorities pinged Debbie Collier's car near a wooded area just south of Tallulah Falls in Habersham County, investigators continue to search for the person who killed the 59-year-old mother of two.
My mom was my everything. Somebody took my whole world from me.
Debbie's daughter, Amanda, and her stepfather, Stephen, reported her mother missing on the evening of September 10th.
I started going to all the different places that I thought she would go, like Walmart, Ulta. I mean, I drove around for at least 2 hours, immediate hysterical. I'd never been through this before.
When authorities located Debbie's car, they found a red tote bag, down an embankment, a partially burnt tarp, and Debbie's clothless body.
A woman who disappeared without a trace. No goodbye. No clues, just gone. This is the case of Heidi Plank, a loving mom, a loyal friend, a hard-working professional who vanished in the middle of her normal day. And to this day, nobody knows what happened. Heidi Plank was 39 years old and lived in Los Angeles. She was a devoted single mother to her 10-year-old son and worked as a controller at a financial firm. Her friends described her as sharp, responsible, and always on time, especially when it came to her son. That's why, when she didn't pick him up from school on October 20th, 2021, it wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. Something was very wrong. Heidi's ex-husband, Jim Wayne, shared custody of their son. In the days leading up to her disappearance, both he and their son tried texting and calling her, but there was no response. At first, Jim thought it might be a simple misunderstanding. Maybe she was busy, but missing school pickup? That had never happened before. That was the moment alarm bells went off. Just a few days earlier, on Sunday, October 17th, Heidi had gone to her son's football game in Donnie, California. Jim said she seemed a little off that day, like something was on her mind. Later that same evening, around 6:30 p.m., surveillance cameras captured her walking her dog, Seven, near Hope and Flower Streets in downtown LA. Just 30 minutes later, Seven was found alone inside a high-end apartment building nearby. That might seem small, but Heidi never left her dog behind. Seven was like family to her. The fact that he was alone inside a strange building made people think something had interrupted her night. On October 20th, when Heidi missed school pickup, Jim filed a missing persons report with the LAPD. Detectives started investigating right away. But what they found was odd. Her phone, laptop, and smartwatch all had location tracking turned off. The GPS in her car was also disabled. It was like someone didn't want her to be found. Using the chip in Heidi's dog, Seven, investigators traced him back to the Hope Plus Flower apartment building. A resident had found Seven wandering the hallways that night. Security cameras showed Heidi going into the building, but there was no footage of her ever leaving. So, what happened inside? Police believe she may have gone there for a private party, and something, during or after that party, may have gone very wrong. Weeks into the investigation, detectives focused on a terrifying theory. What if something had happened to Heidi inside that building, and someone tried to hide it? They launched a massive search at the Chiquita Canyon landfill, because that's where trash from the apartment building is taken. For weeks, teams searched through piles of garbage, looking for even the smallest clue, but they found nothing. No phone, no clothes, no sign of Heidi. Then came another twist. Heidi's job. She worked for a company called Camden Capital Partners. Around the time of her disappearance, her boss, Jason Sugarman, was under investigation by the SEC. He was accused of stealing millions from a Native American tribe's pension fund. Now, there's no direct proof linking this to Heidi's disappearance, but it made people wonder, did she know something? Was she a target? As of today, Heidi Plank is still missing. Her friends and family are heartbroken. Her son is left without answers. And investigators are left with a list of disturbing clues. The missing GPS, the dog found alone, the building she entered and never exited, and a possible link to a white-collar crime that was much bigger than anyone realized. This case has more questions than answers. Was it personal? Was it professional? Or something else entirely? The truth is, we don't know. But what we do know is that Heidi Plank deserves justice, and her family deserves answers. The disappearance of Donnie Messier, of Vermont Mystery Waterbury, Vermont, a small, tight-knit community where everyone knows your name and where secrets are hard to keep. But in October of 2006, one of their own vanished. Not just a person, but a man everyone loved. And with him, a truck so distinctive, it should have been impossible to miss. This is the story of Donnie Messier, a story of unanswered questions, 16 years of silence, and a discovery that only deepened the mystery. At 34 years old, Donnie Messier was what friends called a gentle giant. Big heart, easy smile, the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back, and probably fix your car while he was at it. He worked 2 jobs, nights at Green Mountain Coffee Roasters and shifts at the Billings Mobile gas station. He was reliable, dependable, not the type to disappear. Yes, he'd gone through a tough divorce. However, his therapist said he was showing improvement. His sister, Amy, said he'd been talking about the future again. He had plans and reasons to keep moving forward. Saturday, October 14th, 2006. Donnie finishes his shift at the gas station in the afternoon, visits his grandfather's shop to work on his brakes, and later heads out to watch a NASCAR race with a friend. After the race, he drives to a small gathering in Waitsfield. People there remember him laughing, chatting, sober, in good spirits. Then, sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. on Sunday, Donnie leaves, alone, and from that moment forward, no one ever sees him again. At first, Amy wasn't worried. She thought Donnie had stayed at a friend's. But when he didn't show up for his shift at the coffee roasters on Monday, the alarm turned to dread. Donnie never missed work, ever. Calls to his phone went straight to voicemail. And by Wednesday, October 18th, Amy reported him missing. The Vermont State Police took over. Then came the detail that turned this from a missing persons case into something stranger. Donnie's truck was gone too. A bright red 1997 Ford F-150 with NASCAR stickers on the rear window, a moon visor, dual exhaust, and a black tonneau cover. It was the kind of vehicle that would stand out anywhere. Yet, it had vanished without a trace. Search teams scoured forests, reservoirs, and granite quarries. Divers checked the Waterbury Reservoir. Nothing. Rumors began to swirl. Whispers about a fight at the party that night, talk of a love triangle, and quiet hints that some people weren't telling everything they knew. But no proof ever surfaced. As months became years, Donnie's family refused to give up. They organized searches, spoke to the media, and kept his case alive online. And then, in 2021, a glimmer of hope. A volunteer search group, Adventures with Purpose, joined the investigation. They specialize in underwater recoveries. At first, they thought they'd found his truck in the Waterbury Reservoir, but it was just a sunken boat. Still, they kept looking. October 2022, just days after what would have been Donnie's 50th birthday. Sonar scans in the Winooski River, near the Duxbury Community Gardens, picked up a shape. A large shape. 10 feet under the surface, wedged near the bank, was a pickup truck. A diver went down. Moments later, they surfaced, with confirmation. It was Donnie's truck. After 16 years, it had been there all along. The Vermont State Police moved in, carefully extracting the truck. But during removal, it flipped. Whether that destroyed key evidence, no one knows. Inside, they found a watch, a jacket, and glasses, but no human remains. And here's the strangest part. The river was shallow. The spot was close to a community garden. How could it have been there for so long without anyone seeing it? In later searches, volunteers found CDs, clothing, bone fragments, and even a firearm. But whether any of it was connected to Donnie remains unclear. Some believe Donnie accidentally drove into the river. Others think something happened at that party, something no one has admitted to, and the truck was placed there intentionally. Whatever happened, someone knows the truth. For Donnie's family, the discovery of the truck was not closure. It was a new beginning, a fresh trail to follow. Because until they know where Donnie is and what happened that night, the search isn't over. This is more than just a missing persons case. It's the story of a man who mattered to his friends, to his family, and his community. 16 years of questions, 16 years of silence, and somewhere, the answer is still out there. The mystery surrounding the Annabelle doll has fascinated people for decades. But now, a new chapter has been added to that legend with the sudden passing of Dan Rivera, the doll's longtime handler and lead paranormal investigator. Dan Rivera, aged 54, passed away on July 13, 2025, while touring the United States with the infamous Annabelle doll. His unexpected passing has stirred curiosity, sorrow, and yes, speculation. And it's added yet another layer to the already chilling lore attached to Annabelle. Now, Dan Rivera was not just a caretaker. He was her protector, her researcher, and her interpreter to the public. A native of Connecticut and a dedicated member of the New England Society for Psychic Research. Rivera played a crucial role in carrying on the legacy of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the original investigators who first acquired the doll. And unlike the porcelain version made famous by Hollywood's Conjuring universe, the real Annabelle is a raggedy doll. She's kept under strict precautions due to her alleged spiritual associations. Rivera had been touring with the doll as part of the Devils on the Run tour, educating the public about her paranormal history and presence. But during a weekend event in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Rivera was staying at a local hotel while Annabelle was on display at the Haunted Orphanage, a location with its own dark folklore. On the morning of July 13th, hotel staff found Rivera unresponsive in his room. Police confirmed there were no signs of foul play, and the official cause of death is still pending. The event sent shockwaves through the paranormal community. Dan Rivera wasn't just another name in the field. He was respected for his level-headed approach to the unexplained. He wasn't about drama. He was about documentation, preservation, and public education. His colleague, Chris Gillerin, expressed deep sorrow in a heartfelt tribute, saying Rivera had been more than a co-worker. He was a close friend and an irreplaceable part of the team. And yet, the timing of Rivera's passing, while actively traveling with one of the most haunted objects in the world, hasn't gone unnoticed. Some see it as a tragic coincidence. Others aren't so sure. You see, the Annabelle doll has long been regarded as an object not to be taken lightly. There are stories of strange accidents, sudden misfortunes, and unexplained phenomena wherever she's gone. And even though investigators like Rivera took strict precautions, many still believe the energy attached to the doll is unpredictable and sometimes overwhelming. Despite the sorrow, the tour will continue. Annabelle is scheduled to appear next in Augusta, Maine, this September, followed by events in Illinois and Kentucky in October. The New England Society for Psychic Research has vowed to carry on Rivera's mission, to educate the public while respecting the seriousness of the objects in their care. But what makes this story so compelling isn't just the mystery of the doll. It's the deeply human element behind it. Dan Rivera was a real person with a passion for the unknown, a calm, rational voice in a field that often stirs fear and speculation. His absence leaves a void, both personal and professional, and many are left wondering, was it just a tragic coincidence? Or something more? Dan Rivera's legacy will now forever be intertwined with that of Annabelle, a story that blends history, haunting, and the eternal question of what lies beyond. And as Annabelle continues her journey across the country, so too will the memory of the man who cared for her, etched forever into the mystery of the paranormal. What would you do if you bought your dream home, a place to raise your children, build your life, and then discovered someone was watching you, not just peeking through the blinds, not just curious neighbors, but someone who claimed they'd been watching your house for generations? This is not a horror movie. It's a real-life nightmare that began at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. And to this day, no one knows who the watcher is. In the summer of 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus thought they had found their forever home, a beautiful, historic house in an upscale, peaceful neighborhood. Westfield was safe, quiet, perfect for raising their 3 kids. The home, built over 100 years ago, was located at 657 Boulevard. They were so eager to buy it, they paid over the asking price. This wasn't just a house, it was a fresh start, a dream. Renovations began immediately. Contractors were scheduled within a day of closing. Everything seemed perfect, until 3 days later, when Derek found a letter in the mailbox. And that's when everything changed. It was a plain white envelope. No return address, just the words, "To the new owner." At first, the letter sounded polite, a warm welcome to the neighborhood. But as Derek kept reading, the tone shifted. The writer claimed their family had been watching the house for generations. Their grandfather, their father, and now them. It wasn't just a figure of speech. They meant it, literally. They spoke about the age of the house, how it had secrets in its walls, and how now they were waiting for the young blood to arrive. Yes, that's what they called the Broaddus children. Young blood. They even asked, have they started using the rooms upstairs yet? Which one will be mine? They knew about the kids. They knew about the renovations. They were watching, and at the bottom of the letter, it was signed simply as The Watcher. Derek was alone that night, He immediately turned off all the lights, locked every door and window, and called the police. When they read the letter, even officers were stunned. Who would send something so strange, so specific, so disturbing? The Broadduses contacted the previous owners, the Woods family, asking if they'd ever received anything similar. Surprisingly, the Woods admitted they had received one letter just before moving out, but they had never seen anything like this. For the Broaddus family, the nightmare was just beginning. More letters began to arrive, each one more unsettling than the last. The watcher knew their names, their routines, even details that only someone nearby could notice. He wrote, "I see that you've painted the house. Why did you change it? Have the children found what's in the walls yet? I am in charge now." The watcher spoke as if the house belonged to him, like he had some emotional claim over it. And the worst part? He never threatened with violence. He just made it clear he was always watching. As the mystery deepened, people started asking questions. Who was the watcher? Some believed it was a disgruntled neighbor, angry about the renovations. Others thought maybe it was someone with mental illness, obsessing over the house. Then came the wild theories. Was it someone who had lost the house years ago and felt entitled to it? Was it someone involved in the real estate transaction? Or was it all a hoax by the Broaddus family themselves? Some people accused Derek and Maria of writing the letters to get out of a mortgage they couldn't afford. But no solid evidence ever supported that theory. One thing was certain: the fear was real. Derek and Maria never moved in. They were too scared, too anxious about the safety of their children. Imagine living in a house where every creak, every shadow could be someone watching, where you're afraid to send your kids into the yard because someone out there is obsessed with them. The Broadduses were consumed by paranoia. They hired private detectives, installed cameras, even considered selling the house. But the watcher wouldn't stop. Despite all the investigations, fingerprint checks, and surveillance, the watcher was never caught. Police had no suspects. Neighbors were questioned, mail was traced, but every lead led to nowhere. Eventually, the Broaddus family sold the house in 2019 at a loss. And the watcher? Vanished, just as mysteriously as he appeared. The house at 657 Boulevard still stands, and while the new owners haven't reported any letters, the fear and curiosity surrounding the case still lingers. Who was the watcher? A neighbor? A stranger? Or someone hiding in plain sight? We may never know. But one thing's for sure: some stories are more terrifying because they're true. It was the evening of February 19th, 2005. Two friends, 34-year-old Danielle Imbo and 35-year-old Richard Petron Jr., decided at the last minute to spend the night out together. They had dated once before, but hadn't seen each other in quite some time. Life had thrown them both some challenges recently, and this night was meant to be nothing more than a friendly catch-up. They met up with friends at a popular bar on South Street in Philadelphia. The mood was light, the music was good, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Shortly before midnight, Richard and Danielle left together in Richard's black Dodge Dakota. That moment would be the last confirmed sighting of either of them. The next day, alarm bells began to ring. Danielle missed a hair appointment, and calls to both her and Richard's phones went straight to voicemail. Her brother, John, let himself into her home with a spare key. Everything inside looked perfectly normal. No signs of a struggle, no sign she had suddenly left. By mid-afternoon, it was clear something was wrong. Danielle hadn't returned home to pick up her young son, Joe Jr., from his father. For both Danielle and Richard, disappearing without a word was completely out of character. That's when the families contacted the police. The search began almost immediately. That night, John and Richard's father drove through the streets between Philadelphia and Mount Laurel, checking highways, side streets, and even waterways. They scanned the major bridges, hoping to spot Richard's truck. Nothing. By the next day, friends and volunteers joined in. They searched within a 100-mile radius, handed out flyers with pictures of Richard's truck, and even hired a helicopter to scan from above. But despite all the effort, there was no trace, not of the couple, not of the vehicle. Over the months and years that followed, investigators explored every possible lead. Eventually, the FBI suggested that this could have been a targeted act, something planned in advance. But with no physical evidence, the case stalled. For those who knew them, Danielle was remembered as a warm, outgoing woman who loved music, books, and above all, her young son. Richard was easygoing, a devoted father to his teenage daughter, and someone who worked hard at his family's bakery. They had both been through difficult times, and their night out had seemed like a simple return to good company and familiar faces. Instead, it became the start of one of the most baffling unsolved cases in the region. To this day, their families live with unanswered questions and the weight of not knowing. They hold on to hope that one day, someone will come forward with a piece of information that brings closure to a night that began with music and laughter, but ended in silence. The United States soldiers find something shocking in the sands of Iraq: $500 million worth of gold bars and $600 million in cash. But no one knows what happened to it. The United States military announced that American troops had confiscated a truck in Iraq, a truck that was carrying gold bars with an estimated value of over $500 million. American troops, operating in a volatile region, had stopped a convoy of vehicles for what seemed like a routine inspection. Among those vehicles was a truck, and upon closer examination, it revealed a cargo that stunned the soldiers. Stacked high, in the truck's cargo bay, were gold bars, each one gleaming in the harsh desert sun. The gold was quickly estimated to be worth over $500 million, a fortune so vast. It raised immediate suspicions. Where had it come from? And where was it going? The Central Command reported that soldiers had discovered the bars during a routine traffic control examination of a Mercedes truck near the border. According to the command statement, the soldiers took 2 individuals into custody who were in the truck. But the story doesn't end there. Shortly after, United States troops made another discovery. This time, over $600 million in U.S. currency, tucked inside boxes located near the royal complexes in Baghdad. Despite the enormous value of both the gold and the cash, what happened next is where the mystery deepens. According to some reports, the gold was transported to a secure location by the U.S. military. There, it was supposed to be cataloged, documented, and eventually turned over to the appropriate authorities, whether that meant the Iraqi government, the U.S. Treasury, or some other designated entity. But then, as time went on, the trail of the gold seemed to vanish. Official records of the gold seizure and its subsequent handling are either incomplete or non-existent. Attempts to trace the gold have been met with silence, or at best, vague responses from those in authority. And so, the lack of transparency has led to widespread speculation and, of course, conspiracy theories about the gold's ultimate fate. The story of the seized gold bars and their disappearance has become emblematic of the broader uncertainties and complexities of the conflict that was happening during this time. In a war marked by shifting alliances, unclear objectives, and constant threats, the fate of the gold serves as a reminder of how easily things can slip through the cracks in such a chaotic environment. The incident also highlights the challenges of accountability and transparency. During times of war, what happened to the gold? We may never know. Logan Schindelman was a bright and talented young man whose mysterious disappearance has left family, friends, and investigators searching for answers. Known for his kind heart, poetic soul, and sense of humor, Logan was well liked by his peers and loved by those closest to him. A former football standout at Tumwater High School, Logan graduated in 2015 and briefly attended Washington State University before deciding to leave school and return home to live with his grandmother and half-sister. He worked a series of jobs and was, by most accounts, still searching for his path in life. Born on the 27th of June, 1996, Logan was of mixed heritage. His mother was biracial, and his father, whom he never met, was of Saudi Arabian descent and lived overseas. Logan's mother, Hannah, remained part of his life, but it was his grandmother, Ginny, who was given legal guardianship so Hannah could attend art school in Olympia, Washington. As Logan reached the end of high school, he began struggling with a sense of identity. Those close to him reported that a classmate's inappropriate comment deeply affected him and led him to withdraw from some of his social circles, leaving him feeling increasingly isolated. The last confirmed sighting of Logan was on the morning of the 19th of May, 2016. He and Ginny briefly spoke before she left for her job at the Washington State Department of Ecology. Logan told her he had experienced an epiphany, something that seemed important to him, but the details were never shared, as Ginny asked if they could continue the conversation later that evening. Unfortunately, that conversation never happened. When she returned home, Logan was gone. That night, Logan's phone pinged in the area near his mother's home. Ginny, assuming he had gone to visit Hannah, was not initially alarmed. However, Logan had not gone to see his mother, and he never returned home. The following day, when Logan was still missing, concern began to grow. Unbeknownst to his family, Logan's black 1996 Chrysler Sebring convertible had already been discovered the day prior, on the 20th of May, abandoned on the shoulder of Interstate 5, near mile marker 92. Multiple 911 calls had been made about the car drifting across lanes. Witnesses reported seeing a man matching Logan's description jumping out of the moving vehicle and running toward the nearby woods. By the time law enforcement arrived, the driver had vanished. Days later, when Ginny went to the Thurston County Sheriff's Office to report Logan missing, she learned that the vehicle had already been impounded. She retrieved the car and searched it herself, unaware that she might be disturbing potential forensic evidence. Inside the vehicle were Logan's belongings: video games, football gear, clothing, snacks, and approximately $20 in cash. His wallet, ID, and cell phone were still in the car, as well as his EpiPen, something he typically carried due to a nut allergy. Over time, questions surrounding Logan's disappearance deepened. In 2017, a woman came forward with new information. She claimed to have seen two men near Logan's abandoned car on Interstate 5 around the time of the incident. A sketch of one of the men was released to the public, but the identity of either individual remains unknown. Investigators have never confirmed whether these men had any connection to Logan or whether the tip was reliable. Theories about Logan's disappearance vary. Some believe he may have had a psychological break or was grappling with deeper personal struggles. Others suggest the possibility of foul play, especially given the strange circumstances surrounding the car, the presence of other individuals, and the lack of concrete evidence. The idea that Logan simply chose to walk away from his life is difficult for his loved ones to accept, especially considering he left behind items he valued, including his phone and ID. Logan was 19 years old when he disappeared. He stood approximately 6 feet tall, weighed between 170 and 190 pounds, and had brown eyes with black hair, usually kept closely shaved. At the time he was last seen, he was believed to be wearing a black windbreaker, jeans, a white shirt, and possibly Nike sneakers. He also had a small scar on his left forearm, below the elbow. As of now, Logan's case remains open but unsolved. Despite widespread media attention and appeals from his family, no verified sightings or new developments have surfaced. His loved ones continue to hold out hope that one day they will learn the truth about what happened on that spring day in 2016. In the quiet town of Greenock, Scotland, nestled along the banks of the River Clyde, an eerie figure has long haunted the imagination of locals. Known only as the Catman of Greenock, he's become a strange and strangely enduring part of local folklore. Described by many as an elusive presence, the Catman is said to roam the streets and slip through alleys with feline-like behavior. He's as much mystery as man. Though his true origins remain unknown, stories of him have been passed down for generations, blending fact with fiction, shadow with truth. For decades, residents have reported brief, unsettling sightings. A man crawling through dark corners of the town, covered in grime, with eyes that reflect the night like a cat's. One of his most recognizable features? A distinctive scar across his face, adding yet another layer to the mystery. Some say he hasn't aged in years. Others claim he's disappeared only to reappear again and again, always vanishing just as curiosity begins to stir. According to local legend, the Catman was once a Russian sailor who came ashore in Greenock. The story goes, he found himself far from home, and after a brutal encounter with some unfriendly locals, his legs were badly injured, leaving him unable to walk upright. With no home and no support, he turned to the alleys and the abandoned places. He survived on what he could find. Some say he adapted, crawling through shadows, feeding off scraps, and sometimes small creatures, especially rats. Over time, his behavior, his appearance, and his survival instincts gave rise to the name Catman. While many brush it off as myth, photographs and personal accounts suggest otherwise. Several images have surfaced, showing a man with an unmistakable appearance. Mud-covered, crouched, and very much alive. Witnesses claim he doesn't speak and prefers to retreat when spotted. Yet, despite his quiet nature, some say they've left food out for him, only to find it gone by morning. Then, for a time, the sightings stopped. Years passed. Many believed he had either passed away or simply moved on. But to the surprise of many, sightings began again in recent years. New photos appeared. The same man, older, but unmistakably him, with that same haunting scar, that same crouched stance. Despite the eerie nature of the legend, many people in Greenock feel a surprising sense of sympathy for the Catman. While his story has taken on almost mythical proportions, with tales of animalistic behavior and survival in the shadows, the truth behind the mystery seems far more human and far more tragic. Those who've seen him up close don't describe a creature of the night. They describe a vulnerable man, shaped by hardship. Behind the rumors, the ghost stories, is someone who, at some point, was likely left behind by society. Lifelong residents recall first hearing about the Catman as children. What started as playground whispers or spooky stories told around campfires slowly grew into something more complex. As people matured, they began to understand this wasn't a monster. This was a man, perhaps living with physical challenges, perhaps weighed down by life's harsh turns. And rather than a figure to fear, many locals now view him with quiet compassion. Over the years, some residents have left food. Others have placed blankets in places he might find them. A few have even tried, without success, to reach out. But the Catman has always chosen solitude, retreating into the safety of hidden places. That continued distance only fuels the mystery. And unfortunately, his quiet suffering has become the foundation of an urban myth, one that doesn't fully capture the truth. Now, there's a growing sentiment in Greenock that the legend, while intriguing, has overshadowed the individual behind it. It's easy to forget, when we speak of the shadow crawling through alleyways, that he is, in fact, a real person. Someone who likely knew loss, pain, and rejection long before becoming the subject of whispered tales. The Catman of Greenock may always remain a mystery, but behind the legend is a story that deserves more than fear. It deserves understanding. The disappearance and tragic discovery of Thelma remains one of the most unsettling, unsolved cases in recent Canadian memory. A 57-year-old grandmother from Winnipeg Thelma went missing on the morning of July 11, 2015. During what began as a routine walk, she had left her home in the Grassy Boulevard area around 7:23 a.m. as part of her preparation for an upcoming hike on British Columbia's West Coast Trail. What was supposed to be a peaceful day quickly became the beginning of a mystery that continues to haunt many. Following her disappearance, an extensive search unfolded. Investigators determined that Thelma had reached Civic Park near Kildonan East Collegiate by approximately 8 a.m. Evidence pointed to an altercation occurring at that location, after which Thelma was believed to have been taken against her will. Authorities speculated she was moved into a nearby building, residence, or possibly a vehicle. Though numerous leads surfaced, no solid answers emerged for years. 1 year later, in 2016, police shared a potential breakthrough when they received a tip of a possible sighting near a gas station at Kimberly Avenue and Gateway Road. A woman, believed to be Thelma, was seen in distress, accompanied by a man described as having a stocky build and a bowl-cut hairstyle. A sketch of this individual was released to the public, and he remains a person of interest to this day. Authorities believe the man may have had connections to the Valley Gardens area, either through residence, employment, or regular visits. Despite public appeals and the high-profile nature of the case, years passed with no sign of Thelma Kroll. Then, in October 2018, a hunter made a grim discovery in a wooded area in the rural municipality of Taché, southeast of Winnipeg. DNA tests confirmed that the remains found near Chemin Perrin Road belonged to Thelma. The location, approximately 50 kilometers from where she was last seen, raised further questions. Investigators suggested the area might be known to the person responsible, perhaps used as a deliberate location due to its remote and desolate surroundings. Winnipeg Police Services Sergeant Wes Rommel stated that, although he could not reveal how Thelma's life came to an end, there was no indication she knew her assailant. The remote nature of the area where she was found hinted that her disappearance was not random. Law enforcement emphasized the importance of the public focusing on this specific location, suggesting the person responsible was likely familiar with that stretch of land. The discovery of Thelma's remains, while providing some closure to her family and friends, reopened wounds and reignited calls for justice. Her husband, Robert Krull, expressed gratitude for the support but requested privacy as the family processed the heartbreaking confirmation. Her friend and former co-worker, Susan Dell, voiced a sentiment shared by many, stating that although finding Thelma offered some answers, it also reintroduced grief and uncertainty. As the investigation continued, authorities encouraged those living in both the Valley Gardens area and the rural site where Thelma was found to come forward with any memories or suspicions from the summer of 2015. Although the case has since gone quiet, law enforcement remains committed to uncovering the truth. Thelma Krull's story is a reminder of how one ordinary morning can change everything. Her disappearance and the mystery surrounding her final moments continue to raise questions that remain unanswered. For her family, friends, and the broader community, hope persists that one day someone will come forward with the information needed to bring resolution and justice to this deeply troubling case.